Howdy, howdy, and welcome back. It's getting started. It's a Workshop Wednesday that's all about getting started. And in particular, we're going to talk about how to use Google Tag Manager to send custom events, really any event, but custom events in particular, to Google Analytics 4. So if you've been looking for GA4 stuff, this is going to be a workshop you're going to like. Before we get too far into this, welcome. If this is your first Workshop Wednesday, my name is Chris Mercer. Everybody calls me Mercer. My friends call me Mercer. You should call me Mercer too. It's whether you found us through maybe podcasts and talks that I've already given out there. We're always looking for more of those, by the way. So go over to the measurementmarketing.io site if you are interested. Happy to be on your podcast. Maybe you've heard about us already through some of the content that we share with platforms like CXL Institute or Digital Marketer, Social Media Examiner, Measure Summit, some of the trainings that we've allowed them to use. Otherwise, measurementmarketing.io, maybe you're already a member of measurementmarketing.io, whether it's the Measurement Marketing Academy or the free Toolbox membership that we have. However you found us, welcome aboard. We're happy to have you here. It's our job to help people like you learn how to use all these crazy cool tools like Google Analytics 4, and we do that using the Measurement Marketing Framework. Remember, even though you've got Google Analytics 4, it's kind of a complicated platform, especially if you're new to it, but you can still follow the framework. First, you plan. You think about all the questions you're trying to answer, the information you need to collect, and the actions you're going to take based upon the answers that you get. Then you build. That's where you use Tag Manager to send events to Google Analytics 4, which basically collects the information so that you can answer the questions. Then you build reports that display the answers so you can take the actions you want to take. Ultimately, you use those to forecast what your near future results are going to look like. And then you optimize. You measure against your forecasts. That'll very clearly tell you what's working, what's not, and what actions to take next. All right. Now, with all of these trainings, all of these workshops, we always encourage you to taste one thing, one new idea, one new concept, one new thing you didn't know was a thing. Hopefully, you're going to see a bunch of them here. But remember, it's a lot. So just take one new concept, practice that, one new skill, then come back, watch this workshop again. That's why we make them available for you to be able to rewatch them over and over again so you can grab another one new thing. All right. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Getting started. Using Google Tag Manager to send custom events to Google Analytics 4. All right, we're going to dive right in because this is just a whole heck of a lot of fun. We're going to talk about Google Analytics 4, and we're going to do it with our demo store. So we have our demo store all hooked up, and I've already done the hard work of hooking up Google Analytics 4, and it's running and blah, 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 right? We have all that sort of stuff. We've got our stream set up. We've got Analytics 4. There I am waving to you from Austin, Texas. So we've got everything already set up. We know it's working. That's great. However, we want to be able to send events like scroll and page views and all of that sort of stuff. So let's have a quick conversation around Google Analytics 4 and events. And for this, I am going to show you a trick, which I hope you're using quite often. It's called Google. We're going to go GA4 events. Just Google that. The reason I'm asking you to do that is because I want to help you figure out how to answer your own questions as you go through these tools. When you do this, currently, and I imagine for quite a while, this page will be the number one results. Now, this page is important because it helps you to understand and define the different types of events that Google Analytics 4 is basically working to collect. First, there's automatically collected events. Things like page views are an obvious one, right? It automatically collects the page views. There are recommended events, and we're going to come back to these. Recommended events are things that it can collect but doesn't do on its own. And there's custom events, things you completely just make up. Okay, and there are times when you'll need to do that. So we want to talk briefly about these automatically collected, recommended, and custom events. Now, under automatically collected events, right, you can go through here and it'll sort of show you some tagging scripts and everything else. We don't really have to go too far down the rabbit hole. Just know automatically, recommended, and custom are the three main types of events coming through. Where this comes into play is when you go to set up your data stream, by default, you might notice it automatically collects events and you have all these other extra ones coming through here as well, where I've got page views and outbound clicks and site search. And by default, this is turned on where it automatically collects, and automatically is the keyword here, these events as it's coming through. Now I've customized mine ever so slightly, did a little bit of customization where I turned off scroll. Because I don't like how scroll is really done with Google Analytics 4 because they just do it when the visitor hits the bottom of the page. And I don't really want to know 90% scroll. I need to know 10, 25, 50. I want to know a little more of the how steps, right? Where is the drop off happening? And for that, Google Analytics does not automatically collect that. So I turned it off. so it doesn't automatically collect it. Instead, I use Google Tag Manager for that. I could also use Google Tag Manager for video engagement, so I could turn that off because I can get a little bit better understanding of how people use videos with using Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager is still a fantastic resource and partner with Google Analytics 4 because it allows you to collect more detailed information. So that's why I've sort of turned these off. But these other automatically collected events like page views, outbound clicks, site search, file downloads, let's just say I keep those on, right? I like those. So we're going to keep those on for now. So now I have automatically collected events. That's really it. It's super easy to get automatically collected stuff, right? It does it on its own. But what if I want to do something that's a little more like the scroll, right? I want to be able to replace the scroll with automatically collected events. I could totally do a tag manager. I'm just going to show you how I did that first. And we're going to kind of give you an overview and then we'll go into the nitty gritty of using this stuff. So all I did, and I'm going to show you the tag in Tag Manager. So all I did was I set up a GA4 event, right? Very simple. So I just go into, when I set up my tag itself, it just says, which tag do you want it? And I say, oh, GA4 event, because I really only have two. There's the configuration one, which sort of lights everything up and turns it on. And there's the GA4 event. So obviously we did GA4 event. That's the only one you'll really use most of the time. It asks you for the configuration tag, which we set up here. I put in the event name of scroll. And all I did was I set up event parameters, right? Additional details for this event. And for scroll, you use %_scrolled. And then I put in my scroll depth threshold. Now, I'm not covering this in in-depth detail again, so some of you, it might be a little more advanced. Maybe you've never done scroll with Universal Analytics. But for those of you that have, you've used Universal Analytics before, this is a variable that's already built in with Tag Manager, right? It's already doing this stuff. So this is just turned it on in Google Tag Manager so it could remember scroll and know how much it was going down, and that's it. Really simple to do that. And then there's my trigger. So I'm reusing the same triggers I used in Universal Analytics, only now I'm doing it in Google Analytics 4. So I have a better scroll, right? So that's sort of just a rough understanding of events. And in this case, I've replaced out an automatic event with one where I want it done automatically, but better with Google Tag Manager. Okay, so that's that. Let's talk about the idea of recommended events, what those really are. Now for this one, I'm going to give you a different link because this is a link that we are maintaining. And it's always going to point to the proper area, but this page is a little harder to Google for us. That's why we just sort of created a short link for you. So if you do measure.tips/GA4events, okay, again, measure.tips/GA4events, the number 4, and you hit enter, it will take you to this page, which is a little harder to find, but is amazing. So I want to make sure you had a direct link to it. It's a little googly, I get that, but what it's showing you, these are Google Analytics 4 events, otherwise known as recommended events. So this is the list of events that it can collect, but does not automatically collect on its own. Okay, so we've kind of leveled it up. We went from automatically collected events, which are really simple, just sort of turn on, to recommended events, which are all of this stuff here that it can collect, but it doesn't do it on its own. That's what these are. So think about these as these are reserved names. So these are things you would not want to use unless you really, unless they're the perfect name to use. And when you're thinking about events and the different information that you want to be able to collect in your Google Analytics 4 accounts, think about what the behavior is, right? Because that behavior is really the event that's happening on the page, and see if it matches one of these first. You should not try to make up stuff unless you absolutely have to. You always want to try to use something that might already fit. So for example, I might want to create a lead, right? Now I'm gonna go back to our demo store and say, oh, I'm going to do a lead event or even a purchase event. Let's just do that. Do a little fake thank you for purchasing. So if they come to this thank you for purchasing page, let's pretend this was my thank you page and I wanted to fire off, hey, they've officially purchased, right? Just a purchase event. We're not going to talk about e-commerce. I will save that for another workshop in the future so you can watch it. But for now, let's talk about just the purchase event, the idea that they bought something. Now, I could customize that event, say, oh, I'm going to call it sale, right? Like a sale happened, because maybe that's the terminology that I use. However, and this is why you have this page. You want to make sure, again, measure.tips/GA4events to get to this page. But what you'll do is you say, is there anything else that might be better that already exists that I could use for a sale? Lo and behold, purchase is there. Purchase is what I want to use then. I don't want to make up a word called sale because Google Analytics 4 isn't really ready for that, right? And a true custom event, it's not going to do anything with it. It's going to store the information, but it's not going to do anything else. Purchase, though, is a recommended event. It's in this list of events. So we really should be using this because it accomplishes the same purpose as what my custom event of a sale would be. It really is a purchase. So I want to call it purchase because it is in the recommended events. And remember, this is the kind of the tip that I'm communicating here. When you think about the event, the behavior that's happening on your page, that's the event that's happening. If it's not automatically collected, and it's not super obvious to you that's automatically collected, then you go, okay, well, I'm going to have to collect that, right? I need to set up my Google, we're using Tag Manager or something else, but in this case, Tag Manager we're going to use. I need to set up Tag Manager to send a event through, and we're going to have to customize it a little bit now. And I'm going to call it like a sale or whatever the thing is. Then you go through the list of recommended events to see if there's something that fits it better here. If you can use something here, you absolutely should. So purchase is what we're going to use. And I'm going to do this first and foremost because it's going to be super easy and very basic, but enough to get you going, right? Always get good enough to get going with this stuff. So we're going to go into Tag Manager and I'm going to set up a purchase event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a brand new tag, and then I'm going to go to tag configuration. We're going to say GA4 event because we're sending over something that's happening. This is an event that's happening on our page. We always select the configuration tag. So we're going to start there. And then the event name. The event name is exactly this. Always this. Lowercase. If you're doing one that has underscores in it, it's exactly that. Do not, change it. Don't do capital P because it is case sensitive. So if I did purchase like this, it would show up as a completely different custom event, and it would not at all show up in my monetization reports. However, purchase with a lower p is made to show up in the monetization reports and everything else. So that's why we want to use it. Now, ultimately, you would send in e-commerce details, things like that. I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to show you how to do a purchase event. I would start there, get good enough to get going. Come back later and ease your way into GA4 because there's a lot this platform has to offer, but you want to go baby steps into it, especially when you're just getting started, which is what this topic's all about. So then I would want to set up the page. And I have a page view that's already set up. I believe it's this thank you for joining. Let's see, thank you for purchasing page. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to come in here. We're going to create a brand new page view tag. And we're going to say this is on some page views when the page URL. Find page URL. There we go. Page URL contains thank you for purchasing, right? So this is going to be our purchasing. So I'll say page view purchase. Okay, so that's when they've purchased. So that will be our trigger. So when they arrive on the purchase, it's going to fire an event called purchase into Google Analytics 4. How do we name this? GA4. Keep all GA4 tags together. In this case, purchase, right? Because it's a purchase event that's actually coming through. And what I'm going to do, this is something I'm going to get better at, I think, with GA4, is I'm going to make sure we're going to do it just to keep it case sensitive and to encourage people to always keep everything lowercase. So to be GA4, lowercase purchase, because lowercase purchase is exactly what's being sent through here. So I'm going to try to keep these direct and equal. All right, so now we've done that. Of course, we need to preview. So we're going to go preview our stuff. I'm going to close out of this page. And we're going to go back into our tag assistant. We're going to then go into our page. We're going to hit start. It should connect the dots. That should open up our page with our GTM debug. It should say connected here, which means we can go back to tag assistant, see that we're connected, click on continue, and find out, did our page view fire? Did our tag fire the way we wanted it to? You can see here it did. GA4 purchase. GA4 event fired 1 time. Perfect. It was supposed to. That's great. So now I'm going to go back into Google Analytics, this Google Analytics in our real time, right? And we can see there's me visiting. I've got some other events coming through, and I would TBV this eventually coming through, seeing that a purchase event actually happened. So right now I see scroll, page view, click, first visit, and then purchase. So I can see my purchase event. If I was sending details coming through, I could click onto this and then see the additional details coming through. In this example, we didn't send anything else. I didn't send other e-commerce or anything like that. But if I go into monetization reports, and this won't exactly be real time, but if I said, if it comes in the overview and says, oh, here's how many purchases happened, it would show purchases here because it's a recommended event. This particular report is built to receive purchases here. So eventually, within probably a few hours, I would see purchases here. I will not see any information because I didn't actually send over e-commerce details, but we will cover that in a future workshop. So you'll be able to learn how to do that. But for now, at least you get purchases in there and start with the basics. I cannot emphasize that enough when it comes to GA4. Do little teeny bites of this. So let's get purchases in there. Then we'll worry about e-commerce later because that's a whole different animal. Now, let's talk about leads. What if I wanted to do a lead, right? With somebody, like in our case, if they sign up for a Toolbox membership at measuremarketing.io, that's a lead. We want to be able to record that. So we call it lead. We call it Toolbox member technically, but let's just call it the generic marketing term and say it's a lead. First thing I do, I come into my events list. Remember, measure.tips/GA4 events will take you here. And I want to see, is there anything in here that might be a lead? And I go, oh, generate lead. There's generate lead. Therefore, I do not create a custom event called lead because there's already one that's generate lead. So there's already one that is made to record a lead, right? Log this event when a lead has been generated. So it already exists. I do not need to create a custom event. So I'm just going to use generate lead. So I'm copying that out. I'm going to go back into Tag Manager. We're going to create a new a new tag. I'm going to go a little bit faster here just to kind of show you how fast this can be. There's my configuration tag. I pop in the event, right? Generate_lead. I could put in any details if I wanted to in the parameters. Instead, I'm just going to do triggers. And in this case, it was thank you for joining was the page. So that was our page view. We already had a lead trigger set up. So now I've got this all done. I'm going to say GA4. And this is going to be to generate lead event, right? So that's it. So I've already used a recommended. So far, I still have not sent a single custom event to Google Analytics 4. I had an automatic event with the page views. I had an automatic event with scrolls. And I had some recommended events, the generate lead and the purchase. And of course, you would want to go through and preview again just to make sure it's working, but it does. And then you can TBV it. We can TBV, trust but verify is what TBV stands for. So we can go to real-time reports. And in your real-time reports, you can come down, you can see the different events that are happening, right? That's where you see all of this coming through. So that's how you TBV this, right? Coming through. And again, as soon as I trigger the lead would come through here when we do that. So that's recommended events. That is automatic events. However, there are times you will have to use a custom event. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So I wanted to kind of give you the basics of how we're getting to custom. Because sometimes, for example, those of you who know measuremarketing.io and have seen some of our reports over the years, you know one of our most famous reports is the Eyes on the Journey report, where it shows the number of impressions of a page, how many people were introduced to the brand on that page, how many showed interest on that page, how many investigated the offer on the page, how many initiated to go to the next step. It's a very popular report. It's immensely useful. It's a huge optimization win. But GA4 doesn't do that on its own. And GA4 doesn't have anything here that shows like journey or optimization or eyes on the journey or anything that we have back here. So that is a true custom event that we can take advantage of. So that's what we're going to do. We don't have anything that's a recommended event that really fits what that is. And that really truly is something that we uniquely customize for ourselves so that we can pull up that report. So that's what we're going to do. So I am going to go into Tag Manager and we're going to create a new tag. And in this case, we're going to do, again, a GA4 event. Remember, an event's an event's an event in GA4. But you just got to remember, in terms of the name itself, that there's automatically collected events that it does on its own. There are recommended events that are this list of stuff is all the recommended events that are here. And then there is everything else, which is a custom event. So in this case, I'm just going to call this one Journey, because this would be like for the eyes on the journey. And then what I could do is you could put on event parameters and I could say, okay, well, this particular one, the parameter name, right, might be journey step. And then I might call this one impression. Right. So there's journey step, impression. I'm going to do this kind of in a very general way, right? There's always different ways to do this, but I'm going to keep this in a kind of a general way. So we have the Google Analytics 4 event. There's our configuration tag. It's going to be under the event name of journey. That's what's going to show up. And journey is not a reserved name. So that's how we know it's custom, because it's not in that list. So it's not reserved, which means it's a custom event, journey. I am passing through an additional detail in these event parameters, an additional detail of the step. In this case, I'm going to say the impression. For us, I'm going to fire this on all pages. Whenever a page loads, it'll fire the journey that they had the impression. So that's that. Easy enough. So GA and then journey. And then what we're going to do is say, in this case, impression, because this is the detail I'm passing through. Again, lots of different ways to do this. Those of you with Tag Manager skills will know that, but I'm going to try to keep it really basic here. So GA journey, that there's an impression actually happening. Technically GA4, right? There we go. Save that. Now I'm going to do another one. Okay, so I have an impression, and then we're going to say 10 seconds later, they were still there, So I'm going to call that introduced. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to copy, right? So I'm just copying this. It's a super cool shortcut you can use in Tag Manager. So GA4 journey, this time we're going to call this one introduced. So we have that. And I'm going to change the value. So it's still an event called journey, only this time the step is introduced. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to change the trigger because the trigger shouldn't be when the page loads. I want the trigger to be a timer. So I'm going to do a timer, and I actually don't need this for anything else. So I'm going to change this timer. And I'm going to change it so that it's after 5. I'm going to do 10 seconds. This is actually what we really do. So I'm going to show you. So 10 seconds. If I can get this to allow me to edit. There we go. Okay, so we're going to say 10 seconds, which is 10,000 milliseconds. One time is all I'm going to do. And this will be introduced timer. So when introduced happens. Okay, I'm going to change this timer name. So now it's 10 seconds times one time is all that works. And we're going to go ahead and save this. Okay, so there's my introduced. So there will be another step in the journey that shows introduced. So now I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I'm going to do one more just for fun. I'm going to show interested. So we're going to copy this one. This is a GA4. It's still journey, right? Still the customer journey, but this time we're showing interested. So we're going to do that, which means I need to change this journey step to interested. And of course, you could pull this as a variable from a data layer or whatever else. Lots of different ways to do that. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to change the timer. I don't really need the timer, so we're going to delete the timer from here, remove it from this tag. And we're going to say this is a scroll, but I want to do a 50% scroll. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new trigger that is scroll depth, vertical scroll depth, only when they hit 50%. So that's it. When it's 50%, and then we're going to do it on all pages. In this case, scroll, and this is 50. Just 50%. We'll fire this one. So not when they hit 10%, 25%, 50%, and everything else, just when they hit 50% in this case. So that will show interest. And that's going to be the signal that I'm looking for to show that they're interested in the thing that I want them to see. All right. Now we have those 3 new tags, the journey with the different details, impression, interested, and introduced. Let's go ahead. And this is a completely customized event now. Now we're going to go ahead and send this to Google Analytics 4, and we're going to preview it and see if it works the way we think it's supposed to. So we're going to go ahead and pull this up. This loads up our connected thing here. I'm going to go back into the home page so we can see we're connected. I've got Tag Assistant. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go ahead and see, did we fire first and foremost? There's our purchase fired. I'm going to go in here. So this is the other page. And so we didn't fire here. There's our introduced. There's our impression. Perfect. So far, so good. So our impression introduced fired. Now, if I scroll down, that was the 50% mark. That should fire hopefully something else coming through. So there's my interested. So my impression fired, which is the first thing. Now, why did it fire again? In Tag Manager, I can click in. It says, oh, it fired when the container loaded. Great. I can go to number 13, container loaded. It says, oh, it fired on all pages because that's when it fired. I go, great. What got sent over? Journey. What was the name of the journey step? It was called impression, right? So all these details I can see in Google Tag Manager. Super cool for debugging, right? It happened at the container loaded. When I did introduced, which was the timer, that's when this one fired, this introduced tag. Again, I can see it said introduced. Right? Here's where it was sent. It was fired because it was 10 seconds. That's what that timer did. And then when I did scroll depth, this was 10, this was 25, this was 50. And actually, I think it was 50. Maybe it wasn't. Let me make sure. Oh, no, sorry. There we go. Journey interested fired. When the scroll hit 50, it was 50 right here. So when it fired. So at 50% fired, interested, right? So that was at the 50% range. Great. So now I've got all of this set out. Let's go back into Google Analytics and we're going to TBV, Trust But Verify. So if I come through here, I can see there's my custom event journey. Now, remember, I said you can pass through details. We pass through impression, introduced, and interested, and wherever else. So if I click on journey, what I expect to see are the different details. Let's find out. So we see the campaign, the debug, blah, 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 journey step. So there's journey step. So now I can click in journey step, which again was also a customized parameter that I sent through. So if I click on journey step, impression, interested, introduced. So I have everything in there. So I can start to see the eyes on the journey here. And I know it's working. I know Google Analytics 4 has the information that it now needs, from me at least. I can publish the changes and I can make it live and for the rest of the world. And then I can use Google Data Studio to build like the eyes on the journey report that we normally do. so we can see that. Now I know that some of you are probably like, what is this Eyes on the Journey report? I'm gonna show it to you just so you can see what it is, to help put it in context, but not the point of this lesson. We have other lessons on Eyes on the Journey reports. Especially for those of you that are Academy members, you already know that those are back there. But I will give you an example. So give me just a second. I'm going to pull it up here in another monitor, and then I'll bring it over because it's super cool. So if I go into our Journey report, I'm going to pop up Data Studio, and I realize I'm talking through this as I am on another monitor, so it's really boring to watch, and I apologize for that. But I want to pull this up here. Okay. So this is what an Eyes on the Journey report looks like. And I'm just going to pull it up for the month so we can take a look at it. And here we go. Okay. This is what an Eyes on the Journey report looks like. Super easy to set up, but you got to have the information in analytics. So, impression, when they first arrive at the page. In this case, it's for the Measurement Marketing Academy page itself. So that is this page. If I go here, so this is how we measure the conversation that we're having with users on this page, right? We need to know, like, did they come to this page and just immediately leave, didn't even hang out 10 seconds? Did they stick around 10 seconds, but they didn't scroll down and show any interest? Did they even look at the offer of the Academy, right? To become an Academy member? Did they look at it and actually investigate maybe becoming a member? Did they look at the courses, right? All that sort of stuff. We can measure for this. This is the beauty of being a measurement marketer. So this is the Eyes on the Journey report that we get from that. So we see impressions, right? So many people started. We see introduced, which we always look, for this range or higher for introductions. We see interested. This shows us how many people are interested. We have a specific goal that we're looking for. And we show investigated, how many of those actually investigated the offer, and then ultimately how many initiated. So we're a little low on initiations, right, for this particular one. So this is the Eyes on the Journey report. It shows us how people are using that particular page and the conversation that they're having with that page. Then we can come down here and break it down by traffic source and say, okay, well, maybe it's, the Infusionsoft traffic, which is our direct mail traffic, or it's Google traffic. Like, how does Google traffic do with the Eyes on the Journey report? So we would know, is it CPC or organic or whatever it is? And we'll see here, it gives us a little bit different, right, as we're coming through. Actually, Google traffic's doing quite well. So anybody coming through Google Organic works really well for the Eyes on the Journey. So certain traffic sources have certain conversations with our page. This helps us to optimize. It's just a small sliver of what being a measurement marketer is all about, and what measuring for behaviors and for the conversation on the page that's happening. It's what allows you. It's amazing, this stuff. So, but of course, you have to collect the information, and that is why we just covered what we covered over here. We have to collect these details, because if we don't collect these in something like Google Analytics 4, we cannot connect that into Google Data Studio to build a report like Eyes on the Journey. So that's why it's important to be able to collect custom events. And now you know how to do it. All right. With that, what was your one thing, your one new concept, your one new idea, your one new way of thinking, the one new skill that you could build? Maybe it was just the idea that there are automatic events, recommended events, and custom events. Not everything should be a custom event. You should actually try to avoid them at all costs, but there's going to be a time when you need them. They're absolutely necessary. They just shouldn't be everything as a custom event. You should try to fit it into a recommended event if you can, right? All right. Now, if you want the next workshop that is coming up, speaking of Data Studio, it's a Beyond Basics next week when we're doing Workshop Wednesday. So it's going to be using calculated fields and formulas in Data Studio. If you want that, all you need to do is subscribe. Just make sure that you get notified. You will see that over and over again in through YouTube or LinkedIn, wherever it is. Just make sure you subscribe and follow us there. Also, the other way you can do that is to become a Measurement Marketing Toolbox member. It is a Toolbox membership. It's completely free. You have these workshops that are back there. You get the latest Workshop Wednesday. You'll get 40 some odd tools that are back there to help you with measurement around traffic tracking and planning out your events and the marketing behaviors that are happening on your site and all sorts of fun stuff. And we add new stuff back there, so you'll have access to those too when available. Just go to measure.tip/WW to get that. And of course, you already heard about the Measurement Marketing Academy. Measure.tip/Get Academy will actually take you to that page. I wanted to show you kind of what that looks like. So when you come into the Measurement Marketing Academy, this is the paid program. You would have access to all of the Win courses. They look like this, right? We have all these different, we're actually recording Analytics Setup this week. So re-recording, I should say. We're always updating these things. We teach them live. So there's Win Google Analytics Setup, Tag Manager Basics, Search Console. They're broken down by topics. Here's all the ones we have on analytics, right? Basics, Beyond Basics, Google Analytics 4 Basics. We've got Google Tag Manager, the basics of GTM, Beyond Basics, retargeting setup, even JavaScript. We've got dashboards and reporting. If you're trying to learn Data Studio or just trying to think through some of how to track a funnel, there's going to be Eyes on the Journey workshops, right, that are back there. There's strategy sessions that are back here. So you see all these different courses to kind of think about, how to optimize things or how to improve, your Search Console, or how to learn how to forecast your results. So all of this is back here. It's just this section of the Academy, just this. Then there's the on-demand workshops, which of course include Workshop Wednesday. But then we also edit all these workshops down, and we have an entire history of workshops. There's something like over 200 workshops, including Eyes on the Journey, stuff like that. You can search through the database and you can pull up and say, oh, I want to look for goals or whatever. And it'll search through the database and pull up all the different workshops that might, fit that and then display those. So it's additional stuff. So beyond the courses, there are individual workshops you have answers to on demand, kind of this just-in-time learning concept, so that the answers are at your fingertips. That said, there are times you're going to have questions. We know that. So we built an incredible level of support in the Academy where we have instructors that are just waiting for your answers. So you just click on Ask a Question. I shouldn't say waiting for your answers. They're waiting for your questions. So you can ask your questions, send over screenshots and videos. We love seeing those in the descriptions. Send those links over. Our instructors will watch those videos and screenshots, and they help you out. And they send 9 times out of 10, they're sending back screenshots and videos as well, so that you can get unstuck and on the way. Answers within hours. Not quite real time, but answers within hours, not days. So you can sit there, at least during normal business hours. Then that's just the top 3, right? You get the courses, the on-demand workshops, course instructors to help you out, kind of like having a consultant on call. But wait, there's more. You've got the Winner Circle. That's the community back here, which is all here, right? Winner Circle community, people kind of sharing different stuff, a lot of stuff going on right now between Facebook and Apple and everything else. So you see these conversations of people measuring and doing their marketing and living the dream that you are. There is the toolbox, which has all of the different tools that we talked about. So you have that as well. And then of course, the place to manage your account, change your password, email, all that fun stuff. That is the Measurement Marketing Academy. It's a massive, massive platform, a place to learn, a place to grow your skills. So if that is something that interests you and you really want to learn this stuff, things like Eyes on the Journey reports, measure.tips/getacademy is the place to go. All right. With that, we will officially bring this one to a close. Thanks again for joining us. This has been Getting Started, using Google Tag Manager to send custom events to Google Analytics 4. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.